This is the story of how I broke my social media addiction. Like almost everybody, just look around you, no matter where you are, on public transportation, in restaurants, on the corner streets, planes, offices, whichever way you look today, I guarantee that you will find at least someone glued to their phones. And that includes me. It is said that the average person picks up their phone 58 times a day to check notifications, send messages, browse the web, and to scroll through social media 58 times a day. If that's not a cry for help, then I don't know what it is. It is safe to say that we're all addicted to social media. And yes, all of us. And before you say no, ask yourself, don't you find yourself endlessly scrolling through social media feeds, constantly refreshing them over and over again? Don't you enjoy reading comments? Better yet, why is it that the first thing you do in the morning is check your phone? Aren't you hoping to have some notifications? All these are just some of the signs that you're addicted. I knew I was addicted to social media when I noticed that I couldn't do any activity without my phone. It was crazy. I used my phone everywhere. That included the dining table, the gym, the shower, the bathroom, bed, in the car. It didn't matter if I was being driven or the one driving. I knew I had to find help when I started to notice weird things happening to me. For starters, I began to notice how comments on videos influenced my viewing experience. For instance, if someone left a negative comment, I found myself spending the entire time trying to figure out what the comment said, which distracted me from fully engaging with the video itself. I would spend 4 hours sitting there watching TikToks. Okay, I'm lying, 8 hours. That meant I had no time for my friends, family. I even started comparing my own life to others, which in turn led to feelings of inadequacy and envy. I couldn't even sleep at night because I kept telling myself, just one more video, just one more video. I would set limits like, I'll sleep when it's 11. Okay, midnight. Okay, at 1 a.m. But I'd still find myself glued to the screen. And on days when I left the phone behind, I began to feel anxious and restless. But I definitely knew I had to find help when I almost got into a car accident one day because of TikTok. Well, and so I did. Like almost everybody today, I went to the best place in the world for help, which is YouTube. I wanted to understand why I was so addicted to social media and the steps I could take to overcome it. During my research, I discovered that social media affects our brain by triggering pleasure responses similar to those caused by addictive substances like cocaine and nicotine from cigarettes. I found out that when we share a story about ourselves or receive likes and comments, it activates the brain's reward system, releasing a chemical called dopamine, which is a feel-good chemical. The same chemical that is released when we eat food, accomplish a goal, or have sex. This creates a cycle where we seek validation and engagement, leading us to continuous use. Over time, this prolonged use can lead to physical changes in our brain, resembling those seen in substance addiction. I was shocked, because all this time, I thought social media was mainly used for good, like connecting with family and friends or finding a community. I was so surprised to hear about the negative, like the psychological impacts, which included anxiety and depression, the low self-esteem caused by comparison, the cyberbullying, like harassment and intimidation. It was too much for me. Anyway, after watching countless numbers of videos, I made a decision to follow the constant top advice from all of them, which was to delete all my social media applications. And so I deleted all my apps from my phone. At first, I felt relieved that I was finally taking action. So the first few hours went smoothly, and I even managed to get through the whole day without any issues. However, things became more challenging the following day. For starters, it felt strange having breakfast without YouTube. While I was doing my chores, I began to feel anxious, wondering what if I missed out on an important message. I wasn't happy, and over time I realized that I was replacing my phone addiction with food. After 2 days, I knew that this approach was not gonna work for me. It felt impossible. I just couldn't do it. So I gave up on quitting social media altogether, and I downloaded back all my apps. Hold on. Pause. If this is the same way you tried or thought you could fight your social media addiction, I want you to know that for most of us, it's not gonna work. Trust me, if I could only tell you the number of times I've tried, it never works out for me. Simply deleting your social media apps isn't going to be enough because you still have the urges to go back to it. You cannot reset your brain in 24 hours like some of these clickbait videos claim. You have to understand that this is a lifestyle change, not something that can be accomplished in a week or 24 hours. Personally, I don't think quitting social media altogether is necessary because we need it. Instead, it's about taking things slow. It took me literal months to actually reset my brain and to start making real progress in things that I wanted, like permanently deleting some apps. And this is how I did it. As I was re-downloading all the apps back on my phone, a nagging feeling in the back of my head told me that this wasn't the right path. I knew deep down that eventually I would end up back in the same exact place, struggling to delete the apps again. I realized that I needed a simpler and more realistic approach to managing my addiction, one that focused on reduction rather than elimination. After weeks upon weeks of trial and error, I finally discovered a more realistic solution to my addiction. And here are the details of exactly how I did it. First, I created buffers. By buffers, I mean methods used to create a distance or barriers between myself and my excessive use of social media. In other words, I made it harder for me to access my social media apps. I relocated all my social media apps from the first page to the last page of my phone. And on top of that, I put them inside a folder. Moving the apps prevented me from constantly seeing them, which helped me to keep them out of my mind. It also meant that I couldn't automatically reach for them without thinking. See, what many of us fail to realize is that sometimes we instinctively navigate to these apps without even thinking. And at times, we don't even consciously desire to open the apps. We just find ourselves there, almost by habit. Anyway, later I realized that there was actually an easy way to do this. You could remove the apps entirely from your home screen, and the phone would automatically relocate them to the app drawer. This meant that I had to navigate all the way back to look at my apps. However, someone might argue and say, "But Marvin, on the iPhone, you can simply search for the app no matter where you are. What's the point then?" Now to that I say, that's true. But the goal, ladies and gentlemen, is to create friction between you and the app. Searching for the app makes it a little bit harder to reach, which aligns with your intention to reduce social media usage. The second thing I did was to simply silence all my social media notifications. That included Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and everything else. This meant that I had to manually check and see if someone posted anything or if something important happened. The third thing I did was to create a simple rule: no phones in certain places, like bathrooms or while driving. The fourth thing I did was to switch my phone to black and white mode every time before going to bed or starting to work on my projects. You see, color has this incredible ability to make everything you look at exciting. It enhances our experience and sparks our imagination, making us want more. Just take a glance at your YouTube page. By switching the phone's display to black and white, it tones down the visual stimulation, making it less captivating and reducing the temptation to engage with it extensively. In order to do this, all I had to do was triple click my phone. And lastly, I had to set timers on my social media apps, which allowed me only 30 minutes of usage per day. That meant that my phone would lock my social media apps after 30 minutes of usage. And to get back the app, I would have to either keep asking for 1 minute or I would have to enter the code to get some extra time. I'm sorry, pause. Now, someone might criticize and ask, how did it work if you already knew the code? And for that I would say, in order for this to be effective, I needed a friend or a person I could trust to assist me during the setup. In my case, it was my partner, and she's the one that knows my passcode. Every time I want some extra time, she has to approve it because I initially told her not to give me the code under any circumstances. Anyway, back to it. See, what the timer did was to send me reminders, letting me know how much time I had left. And once the time was up, it would automatically lock the apps. And the only way for me to open it is by asking the person who set the code. And just like that, with all these strategies and techniques, I certainly found myself gaining the upper hand against my addiction. And after weeks and months of trials and errors, I finally managed to gradually diminish my social media addiction, taking slow but steady steps towards my improvement. And after a couple of months, I successfully removed removed several apps like TikTok, Snapchat, and many others from my phone. Now don't be fooled by how straightforward these methods seem to be. Despite how simple they may seem, they're highly effective. Their greatness lies in their simplicity. Now, if there's one thing I want you to take from this video, it's for you to understand that merely quitting social media isn't always the ultimate solution. It's about finding a balance and a healthier relationship with these platforms. Simply deleting them might address the symptom, but it doesn't tackle the underlying issues or the habits that led to overuse. Instead, it's crucial to understand why we feel compelled to use social media extensively and to develop strategies to manage those urges effectively. By doing so, only can we achieve a sustainable and healthier approach to our digital interactions.